In 2008, on election day, we discovered a kind of a serious problem in our election system, in that young people who were just getting out of prison weren't being told that they didn't have a right to vote. And a young man up in War Road, way up on the Canadian border, went to vote, thought he was being a good citizen, getting his life together, but he found out afterwards from his probation officer that he wasn't eligible to vote, and it was blasted all over the newspapers, and it really helped the legislature to realize that something needed to be done to address this problem. This young man was a very strong supporter of Senator Coleman, Senator McCain. He was trying to do the right things, be active. A year ago, the governor created an election integrity task force. The first day of the meeting, Representative Mike Benson asked the question out loud: is there something in the election law that we could do that everyone would broadly agree? Because he heard what, our governor before, Pawlenty, before him Carlson, and our Governor Dayton had said, which is we should be concentrating in election law change on things we broadly agree with. And the one idea that they had that was really caught the imagination of really everybody in that election integrity task force, Republican and Democrat alike, was the idea that we could use the electronic poll books and the new digital technology to create the possibility of visual verification of voters in the polling place. They came back to us with a couple suggestions. One of them was that we take the photos that we have from our Department of Motor Vehicles and we just simply print them right on the poll roster, essentially a zero cost. The election worker who would be in the polling place would have the picture, they would look at the voter, visual verification, it would be done. But for an even more robust system, and for a system that would give some possibility of going into the future, they suggested that we look at electronic poll books, which would allow the bringing into the polling place the photograph from the Department of Motor Vehicle. And again, it would be similar to the paper version. You would simply have that in front of you. And under that scenario, you would simply look at the person, have the visual verification, and go on. Typically, this kind of setup would include a signature device so that voters would sign the oaths like we normally have today. And also, if for some reason their picture wasn't there, a little picture camera would take their picture. With an electronic poll book, after the election, you don't have to do all the data entry that costs local officials a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and of course with typing there are typos and other errors that are created that have to be fixed. The Kiffmeyer amendment that's proposed has three big components that are quite large in terms of changing the current system. The first is the creation of a provisional voting system. Individuals who would normally be doing election day registration would not be casting their ballot that day. They would be filling in a provisional ballot to be processed on the following day. But it's about 550,000 people who currently are voting after they've done election day registration. The creation of a provisional voting system has generated a tremendous amount of opposition from the people who administer the election, because it's the creation of a brand new system. A lot of cost in creating a new system, a lot of cost in managing that system over the course of the years. I think the Association of Township testimony estimated it would cost them at least $1.5 to $3 million more each year, which is one of the reasons they are very strongly opposed to the amendment that's proposed. But another problem with provisional balloting is that it means you cannot report the results of the election. But for however many days it is, you have 500,000 or more ballots that are not opened, have not been counted for all races, and so you essentially do not know the outcome of elections for however long that is. Our Supreme Court has been quite vocal in defending the constitutional guarantee of the right of every eligible individual to vote. So yes, it does open up the possibility of a very large number of challenges. And why this is a worry is that nationwide provisional votes are typically not counted in a very high percent. Average, about 1/3 are never counted. I think in Indiana, provisional ballots that were cast as a result of the photo ID requirement, only 17% were counted. So those very high numbers of rejected ballots are the basis for court challenges in state after state after state. But the other group of people who would be using provisional voting are any persons who show up in the polling place and under the constitutional amendment do not have the state government issued photo ID. So for example, there's 10 to 20,000 people that have at any point in time a lost wallet waiting for their duplicate replacement photo ID to show up. But let's say you're one of the 131,000 people who have the wrong address on your photo ID compared to your proper polling place. You would not be allowed to vote if you had the wrong address, but you would be allowed to again fill in a provisional ballot. The third group of people that would be unable to vote on election day are the individuals who, right now, the 84,000 individuals who have no photo identification whatsoever. A huge portion of those 84,000 individuals who now vote, some who've been voting since Roosevelt, would not be able to ever get an ID. Many of the others are in nursing homes or in assisted care facilities, so the process of getting those 84,000 individuals their IDs will be a very large process. When asked what would be the specifics of this Kiffmeyer constitutional amendment, the answer has almost always been that specific detail will have to be worked out by a future legislature. So we don't really know. Is it a $50 million idea? Is it a $40 million idea? Is it a 60? We don't know because there have not been the kind of specific details provided. But the provisional voting is the core of the Kiffmeyer proposal. It's the core of the proposed constitutional amendment. And it's the major change that would happen. In that debate, almost every other state, perhaps it is every other state, who has gone to a photo ID system just exempts mail-in voters, and military voters, and absentee voters, and others. I don't mind amending the Constitution, but locking in, a dial phone, locking in, stick shift technology into something forever, and then promising to pay forever for people's free IDs. Well, what's great about the electronic system, of course, is that it makes Election Day registration extremely easy and extremely secure. And of course, one of the benefits of a system like this is that you could have visual verification this November using the simplified version. You could have years of lawsuits coming after a November election is another option. So we've been arguing to all of our friends, look, if we want visual verification in the polling place, we can do it this year, and we can do it at almost no cost. Isn't that the best option for Minnesota?